Hi, today we are going to start with chapter 4. Aman. I'm an idiot. Did I have to go to the bookstore 3 times in 2 weeks? No. Did I have to try to be funny and piss her off? No. Did I have a 4-year-old niece who loved books? No. Did I have to bunk my weekly evaluation meeting by faking a headache so I could sit in this cafe pretending to work? No. But here I was at 1 pm on a Friday afternoon. If any of my friends had spotted me sitting in that corner by myself sipping coffee, I would have a lot of explaining to do. Sometimes, over these past 2 weeks, my life seemed to have changed. I was driving down the street when I saw her walking into the bookstore close to my apartment. White kurta, blue jeans, silver jhumka. She had a round face, bushy brows, and brown hair that swung across her back every time she jerked her head to the rug strands out of her face. She had smiled at someone as she had stepped into the bookstore and it was the most gorgeous smile I had seen on any woman in a long time. The fact that I remembered or even noticed these little things after just a glimpse of her baffled me. Most of my days were filled with looking at tailored suit and computer screens, sitting in boardrooms and attending formal launches. Only the occasional birthday celebration or human resources team building offsite trips expose me to colors beyond grey and navy blue. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. I have spent most of the 31 years of my life watching my father build and run a successful textile business. And from the time I was 10 or 8, I forgot I have wanted nothing more than to grow into his shoes and have a corner office like his. Well, I am there now. Not bragging, I was raised to be proud of anything my hard work produced. And I have been taught never to forget that. I had turned up at office every day at 10 a.m. sharp since I had turned 18. I had been Papa's intern for the first year and then his third assistant for 3 years. On multiple occasions, my parents had sat me down to ask if I wanted to explore something else, another workplace, a different career. They had told me repeatedly that I didn't have to get into the family business if I didn't want to. And as much as I appreciated being given the choice, I never once thought of doing anything else with my life. I grew up watching my parents love each day of building the company with dignity and pride, and I honestly couldn't wait to take on that responsibility. When Papa turned 55 a year ago, he decided to take voluntarily retirement and move with Ma to our home in Missouri. Since then, I had loved every day of being CEO of Raina Textile. In fact, I would have said I had been quite content with my life until just a few days ago when I had first seen Avani. I always had things to do, places to be, people to meet, and when I didn't, I stayed home. But not over the past 2 weeks. Now, sitting in the bookstore with my second cup of coffee and laptop open to a random office email, the clock's hand seemed to be crawling and I couldn't help but notice that Avni hadn't moved in about an hour. She was waiting on a stool by the window near the billing counter and had her back to me. She seemed glued on her phone. I wondered whether I should walk over and initiate a conversation or continue to pretend, type, and wait for her to look in my direction. So, you like? The guy from the cafe, Martin, asked me across the coffee counter. He must have seen me stealing glances in her direction over the past several minutes. Excuse me, I fudged surprise. The coffee? You like? I roast the beans myself every day. It's great, thanks. I gave him a thumbs up and went back to looking intently at my laptop. Your office is in the neighborhood, no? I looked up to see him watching me curiously. I googled you. It's not every day that we have a billionaire CEO stopping by for coffee. And views. He didn't look in Avni's direction, but his shoulder panned towards her, while his eyes stayed on me. I was looking for some quite close to office, financial year end. I work better in silence, and the views aren't unhelpful. I grinned. A hint of smile touched his face and he nodded faintly. Can I get you anything else? I'll take two more coffees. Martin raised his eyebrows and tilted his head in a knowing manner. Coming right up, boss. I had a pressure job. Everyone around me was always waiting for me to falter so they could throw my father's struggles in my face. Nepotism was a touchy topic with most people these days. I got up every day and brought my point to bear at every table I sat at. I had stood up to people twice my age without batting an eyelid. I was relentless when it came to business. And yet, the idea of having a cup of coffee with a girl was making my chest tighter. This was new. I shut my laptop, pocketed my phone, picked up the two mugs of coffee. Martin sat down on the table and made my way to the window by the billing counter. Avni must have sensed me approaching in whatever voodoo telepathic way that women know and sense things because she put her phone down on the window's sill and turned to face me. Hey, hi, she smiled and looked at the extra mug in my hand. Martin didn't tell me he had a new waiter. I chuckled and placed the mug on the windowsill. Yes, I start today. He has offered to pay me in unlimited eclairs and the chance to share one coffee with any employee of my choice. Given he's busy, you were my next best option. Oh, I don't have to be, she said. And before I could ask her what she meant, she yelled in the direction of the coffee. Sambhu Kaka. I turned to see a man in a grey kurta and white pants walking out of the pantry behind the cafe, nodding gravely in her direction. Sir, तुमच्या साथी कॉफी घेऊन आले आते या बसा. Sir has got some coffee for you. Come sit. She gave me a fake smile, mischief brimming in her eyes, picked up her phone and her book, and skipped towards the coffee counter. Looking back, only what she got to the table I was seated at. She pulled out the chair I had slid into place, sat down, and called out to Martin. Martin, I'll have what he's having. She bit her bottom lip to hide a smile and she seemed to turn her attention to the book. This girl was going to be the death of me. Avni, this guy is fucking perfect. It took a couple of minutes for my heartbeat to return to normal after I left Aman standing at the window with Sambhu Kaka while I took his seat at the cafe. When did you become the female model in a men's deodorant commercial, Avni? Since when do your eyes involuntarily shut halfway and your head tilt backward at the scent of a men's aftershave? Thank God you had your back to him. I stole a peek in his direction and saw him standing with Sambhu Kaka, his face slightly turned away from me. His eyes caught the afternoon light and were now a lighter brown, and his dark brown hair shone in loose wave. Friday hair, a little more casual than the first time he had walked in. How did I know these details without looking at him directly, you ask? Well, the bookstore was filled with mirror, great for making a small space open up and just as useful for staring at hot stranger whom you could later stalk on Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, the man played a strong engagement game for someone with only 30 odd posts on his feed. Let's see what we have got to know so far. He was the CEO of a family owned textile company. He traveled often to Missouri, where his parents lived with six adorable dogs, and he had a regular social life. A couple of photos with three other guys about his age, seemingly on some sort of vacation. There were also two girls who seemed consistently present in his party and vacation pictures. They weren't related to him, I had checked. No signs of romantic involvement with either of them. Although one of the girl had commented cutie on every photo, the other had a private profile. The rest of his page was pretty regular, exotic vacations pictures, and some of which he was shirtless and which I might or might not have scrolled past slightly slower than the other post. Smart formal pictures of handshakes with important looking people and sunset. I was about to click on his LinkedIn profile next when I heard loud laughter from the direction of the window and looked up to see Aman and Sambu Kaka throwing their heads back, guffawing over something while they sipped on their coffees. Now, I had worked at the bookstore for almost a year, cracked innumerable jokes, and not once had I got this reaction from Sambhu Kaka. Martin and I turned to each other in sync and mouth wow in tandem, eyebrow raised. Sambhu Kaka could single handedly bring gloom to any room by simply walking into it. Don't get me wrong, he was sweet, but Lord knows the man was dull as a hairpin. We had hardly even heard him speak a word, let alone laugh out loud. Most days we didn't even know if he had come in to work until we found the books brushed dust free and our lunchbox cleaned, spotless, and drying upside down on the pantry counter. What was so funny? I felt like asking out loud. Care to share with the class? There's something about this seat, it seems. Martin had walked up to me and was now sitting on the chair opposite mine. Huh? Whosoever sits there, he said, pointing to the chair I was sitting on, keeps staring in the direction of the window. His smile told me I would soon be bombarded with questions I wouldn't have answers to. Was he staring at me? Don't act like you don't know. I saw you looking at him through the mirror, you creep. Right. It was silly trying to hide anything from Martin. Maya, Ria, and I might be BFFs, but Martin got me in ways the girl didn't. There was something that tied us together in situations such as this one, where he saw right through me. You have to see his Instagram, I said in a hushed tone, pushing my phone towards him. This guy is fucking perfect. Textbook son, dog lovers, successful, social, hot in suit, hot in swimming trunks, hot in a t-shirt, hot without a t-shirt. I whispered the two lines almost out of breath. Why was it so hot in here? Martin snatched up my phone and scrolled through the profile while I kept an eye on Aman to make sure he couldn't see what we were huddling over. I had almost forgetting I was at work with all his teenage fun time I was allowing myself to have when Meera auntie walked in. Who are you? She demanded Who are are you? She demanded while she stopped Aman, who had moved to the billing counter by now, reading the back cover of a book I had left on the counter. This is Avni's seat. Although you do look immensely better than she does on the stool, so I won't complain. You can call me Meera, classic Meera auntie. Hi Meera. I heard him saying I should have taken this seat much earlier today. If I had known you would walk through that door. You have a beautiful, very beautiful smile. All the women I have met lately scowl at most thing I say. Idiot. Shambhu Kaka nodded in greeting at Meera auntie, took the empty coffee mugs and walked past me into the pantry. Traitor, I'll deal with you later. I walked up to the counter and smiled at Meera auntie as she wiggled her eyebrows at me and walked away to the romance section. I turned to Aman. Could I get my seat back, Aman? We don't usually let customers go behind the counter, so playtime's over. Some of us have jobs. Of course, he threw his hand up in submission and hopped off the stool. The swing door that gave us access to the counter was narrow and allowed only one person at a time to pass through. Aman waited for me to go in before he sidled past me on tiptoe. His arm brushed against my hips as he took one slow step after another until he was out. I felt the hair on my arm stand up. He turned to me and winkled as he walked over to the cafe. He winked. The guy winked at me. My stomach flipped and my cheeks turned hot as a sudden urge to duck and crawl under the counter arose from deep within. Thankfully, my limbs protested, and instead of the habitual duck, I stood there looking at him like a doe caught in the headlights. Then, before my brain and heart could form a well discussed way forward, my tongue went rough and blurted out, Do you like happy hours? He looked at me as he reached the table he had left his laptop on. I just had a happy hour and I don't hate it. No, I shook my head, unable to stop chuckling. Do you like cocktails? We have happy hours here at bookstores later this evening if you are interested. I don't drink. Of course he didn't. This guy was the template that got lost when God did his laundry without checking the pockets. Hence the one and only piece. Oh, never mind then. See you soon. I forced a smile. What time? Sorry. What time is soon? 8 p.m.? You said you don't drink. I am fun even without an alcohol in me. I'm sure you are more fun with alcohol in me. We will see about that, I said as I made a show of getting busy with the cash register. We will. See you at 8. He packed up his laptop, paid, and walked out of the door without looking back. See you, I whispered as the door closed behind him. Then finally, after what felt like hours, I breathed. Who was this guy? And what is the name of God was happening here? Did I tell you Martin is freakishly strong? Yeah, Martin is freakishly strong. He walked over to me, scooped me up from behind the billing counter, carried me over the cafe counter, and set me down on it. Talk, bitch. I know God has a sense of humor because just then, like clockwork, the doorbell dinged and in came Ria. About what? She asked, taking off her jacket and skipping over to the interrogation zone. Fuck my life. About Avani's new hot rod. Martin has a way without words, as you would have noticed. I opened my mouth to protest, but no words came out. Boy, toy? I cringed. Man muffins? Dick stick. Oh, Shut up, Ria and I went together. You shut up. I saw you undressing him with your eyes. Now spill, Martin said. You are so extra. I ignored Ria's dancing eyebrows and drowned out, oh, Avni, and continued in a monotone. There was no undressing. He's sweet, and I was feeling bad about snapping at him the other day, so I invited him to our happy hour. I'll buy him a drink and say sorry, and that will be it. Let's not overreact here, and let's please behave ourselves when he gets here in hopefully 4 hours and 30. 3 minutes. I glanced at the antique clock that hung on the gift shop wall. Silence. I could feel Ria muffling a snicker. My ears felt hot again. Okay, fine, Martin said after a few beats, bobbing his head gently. Won't say a word. I agree, actually. Let's not overreact. I like that you are keeping it all under control by counting every minutes down since he left. By the way, good plan. He disappeared into the pantry. Jerk. Mira auntie emerged from somewhere near the romance aisle with her telling smile. Okay kids, I have to be off. Have a tash party to go to. Enjoy you raging hormones, she said, giving me a mischievous look. She had obviously heard our entire conversations. Enjoy your trashy party, Mira, Martin called out. She rolled her eyes at Martin's word, hugged me goodbye, and walked out of the bookstore. I used this welcome distraction to get off the coffee counter and was walking to the billing area when I was yanked back like a coat on a hanger and dragged off to the staff bathroom. So, what did I miss? Ria asked with a twinkle in her eye. The kind of twinkle a child has in a candy store, a parent has at the gates of a daycare center when they are dropping their kids off for the day, or the kind of crackhead has at a music festival. I took my time replaying acutely aware that I had to choose my words carefully. Why? Because this was Ria, the group leader of Romantics Anonymous. Everything was a sign for her. Everything was dreamy. She would see the situation as so much more than it actually was, and I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to be told that the universe had sent Aman to be exactly where he should be so our path would cross. Maybe the universe sent him. No, I cut her off. Ria. No, please don't read any more into the situation than needed. I would like to believe that the universe has more important things to do to take care of than making Aman appear out of the blue in my life like world peace or whatever else the girls on beauty pageant stage talks about. Hell, I'll be pissed off if the universe had anything to do with this, because I have been praying for my skin to clear up for way too long now, and if this got prioritized over that, I am done with writing my morning affirmations. It's just one drink and an apology. I don't want to freak out about this, okay? It must have seemed like a ramble to her because for the first time in favor, Ria replied with a nod. No counter argument, no alternative explanation, no looking for the silver lining, nothing, just a nod. She hugged me, kissed me on my cheeks, and walked out. I looked at myself in the mirror, told myself to get it together, and followed her out. It was still only around 4 p.m., which meant I had 4 hours to get my heart to beat normally and my armpits to stop sweating. Martin was busy at the cafe with two new customers who had walked in and Sambu Kaka was hovering gravely around the two tables of college kids working on some project who had ordered nothing more than a coffee closely to 90 minutes ago. Close to 90 minutes ago, I walked over to the book bestsellers section. I had been meaning to buy Dhruv a present for his birthday, which I had missed 3 months ago. I knew he loved murdered mysteries. Since I had no clue about what was hot among the mass murderers fan club, I figured the bestseller section would be my best bet. After a brief confusion between an anthology of serial killer stories and a contract killer's journal, I picked the journal. I mean, at least the killer is this one was guaranteed to have a great self-help routine going if he was journaling, right? The next 40 minutes was spent in wrapping up the book in purple crepe paper, decorating it with white ribbons, and writing out an elaborate note wishing him the best of the year to come. I wasn't even that close to Dhruv. I hung out with him because one, he was the only student in class who could talk about things other than law, and two, because Ria had become so immensely interested in him. Gift wrapped, accounts tallied, book finished, work scheduled for the next week sorted, hair brushed, lip and cheeks stain fixed, perfume heavily sprayed, and I still had time to kill before the clock stuck. 8. Struck 8. Why were the clock's hand moving so slowly? Was it never going to be 8 p.m.? Aman, she's something else. I don't remember the last time I walked on the street of this city that I love so much. Growing up, Papa would take Gagan, my elder brother, and me on walks along Marine Drive every weekend. He bought us cotton candy and pizza at the pizzeria by the sea. Every Saturday when we left the house, Ma would warn us not to eat while we were out, and when we came home we had lied to her about pizza and settled in for a second dinner. It was the perfect crime, or so we thought. Once Gagan flew off to London for college. Then, when he turned 17, I was 14 then. I slowly got busy with friends over the weekends, and the walks were reduced to just framed photographs of the three of us on the nightstand until today. I knew I would reach home from the bookstore in about 7 minutes if I took the car, but a walk sounded right today. I needed a few minutes to myself to play back in my mind every second I had spent breathing the same air as Avni. I wanted to hit pause every time she smiled to reveal the faintest dimple right before the curve of her lips. Every time she tucked her hair behind her ears to buy a second to think about what she wanted to say next. Every time she bit her lips to hide a smile when she knew I was looking at her. Every time she rolled her neck back to stretch and revealed a mole near her left earlobe, and every time she looked in my direction with those big beautiful eyes. I laughed a little when I caught sight with myself in the reflecting door of a store I walked past. I had never seen that smile on my face, shy and slightly wonky, like I was thinking about something I didn't want anyone to know about, which was true. I picked up the pace. As much as I was enjoying this lazy walk, I also had to get some important work out of the way before the happy hour at the bookstore. Martin was right when he said my office was in the neighborhood, but he didn't know that my house was also just a couple of minutes away. Soon I was waiting for the private elevator in the lobby of our building. I entered and smiled at the lift man who had worked for us for the past 9 years. My parents had bought and renovated this building a few years back, and it had been our home ever since. And now that Mapa were in Missouri and Gagan was working in London, the top 3 floors were all mine. I nodded at the lift man and I exited the elevator and stepped into the lobby that led my penthouse apartment, taking my jacket off and placing it on the marble console table in the entryway of my living room. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I had left office earlier that morning. I needed to get to it before I could leave for the bookstore again. I took my laptop and walked into my home office. The next few hours zoomed by on endless calls and emails. And the next time I checked my watch, it was 40 minutes past 8 p.m. God damn it.